Hello and welcome to another afcbTV preview show. With 2 games, 5 goals scored and just 1 conceded, both myself and Kris Temple have plenty to get through today. Here's what's coming up on today's show. We'll look back at last week's 3-0 win at Craven Cottage. We'll also be reviewing the Tuesday night game against Norwich City in the Carabao Cup. And finally, we'll be looking ahead to tomorrow's game against Jose Mourinho's Manchester United. But before all of that, let's rewind the clock a week and go back to Craven Cottage as the Cherries won 3-0. Here are the short highlights.
Adam Smith falls over off the ball, but Lewis Cook continues, and now a chance for Wilson, and the penalty has gone down, and Callum Wilson wins the Cherries a spot kick. Of course he does. It's another penalty for the Cherries, and Joshua King is usually the taker. He's not playing. Callum Wilson has missed one this season. Who takes it? Wilson has the ball.
Well, we've just seen it again.
The goalkeeper is Rico, the striker is Wilson, the score is 1-0 to Bournemouth. Rolls it just left of centre, and Bournemouth take an early lead here, and that could be the thing that breaks Fulham's spirit early on. Wilson, goal.
Well, good penalty, ones that hit the net always are. I have to say that it's been a really good start for us. The possession we've had and the attacks we've had have looked dangerous. But that was quite a silly challenge, rather. Was it Mensah? He's a bright spark, isn't he?
I thought you were going to say he didn't put a lot of thought into the challenge or something like that. But so Callum Wilson scores. That puts him clear as the Cherries' top scorer for the season with 5 goals. A chance for the Cherries. Fraser with Brooks, 2-on-2 here. Fraser plays it in. David Brooks for 2-0. It is 2-0. David Brooks seems to love scoring on the road. One at Watford, and now one here in Fulham. And the Cherries, despite probably being second best in the second half, find themselves 2 goals clear and heading for 3 more points.
Clinical, unselfish. What a goal. Fulham attacking us, having a load of possession. The lads just combine to win the ball back in half-time. It's Fraser who carries the ball 30, 40 yards. Brooks, who makes a fantastic run and shoots through the keeper's legs. Fantastic goal.
Well, what were we talking about before the game, Willow? We heard from Ryan Fraser, making the right decisions, unselfishness. That was it there, because he could have gone on himself on the outside. Brooks's run was clever, onside, perfectly timed, to roll it through the keeper's legs. And before Fraser's ball, by the way, we've got to say Wilson with a little sliding toe in on the halfway line to set Fraser away.
Yes, just as important, Kris, the way they won the ball back on the halfway line, just by getting a press and closing down.
United next Saturday. Fraser plays it through. Wilson to really put it to bed. Right-footed, and the Cherries are home and hosed. And it's Callum Wilson for the second time in the afternoon who sends those travelling supporters wild. And once again, Fulham proving their happy hunting ground for the Cherries. Wilson twice, Fulham 0, Bournemouth 3.
Well, what a strike. I think he's done him on the near post, hasn't he? I know it had loads of pace on the shot. What a finish.
Cracking strike from Wilson. We talk about making the right decision and being unselfish, but there Wilson was right to go at himself. He was thread through, and he did indeed beat the hapless Rico at the near post.
Yeah.
It looked like he had no idea where his goal was.
No, there was so much pace in the ball. You know, keepers often criticised for getting done on the near post, but that one absolutely flew past him.
Well, there we go. 2 goals from Callum Wilson as well as another one from David Brooks saw the Cherries win 3-0 at Craven Cottage. Extended highlights are available for free on afcbTV. Well, Kris, what a performance it was at Craven Cottage.
Yeah, the attacking football again. I said they didn't actually need to be right at their best because Fulham, you know, they weren't very good defensively. They're all over the place, and the way Bournemouth have been playing recently, I would say Bournemouth probably only needed to be sort of between a 7 and 8 out of 10. I say only 7 or 8 out of 10, but compared to some of the recent performances, but they were again ruthless. I mean, a couple of goals for Callum Wilson, the David Brooks goal. I mean, what a counter attack that was. Again, just exactly what we've come to see from the last few weeks. So there'll definitely be tougher tests than Fulham this season, but you still got to go there, and all the time it was 1-0. You know, that's not a comfortable score anywhere. So as soon as that second goal went in, and then obviously Callum putting the game to bed late on, yeah, Fulham have got problems, but that was a great performance, and you know the away wins keep clocking up.
Eddie Howe said after the game as well, it was a very professional performance. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and that they needed to be professional because they did have to hang on a little bit, not hang on in the game, but as in hang on to make themselves count in the game and to get that second goal. The early goal obviously just puts the foot on Fulham's throat the way they've been playing recently. So I think everything went pretty much to script in that game. The early goal, you know, Fulham had a little bit of a spell early in the second half. You know, some of their better players, I mean, Schürrle, he was lucky he'd fallen in the river in the second half. He was absolutely nowhere. Ryan Sessegnon, Championship Player of the Year. He was good for 5 minutes at the start of the second half, but they absolutely shackled him. He did nothing in the game. You know, Mitrovic, even physical threat, I don't think he had a shot. So, you know, all of their better players, they just weren't able to get into the game, and that's credit to, again, the way that Bournemouth are set up at the minute, snuffing out, you know, Jefferson Lerma snuffing everything out, and the attacking players taking advantage of their situations and making them count.
And of course we saw a change of formation as well. How do you think that went for the Cherries?
Went pretty well if you look at the score. I think now they've actually got to the stage where they're as adaptable either way. So I think that's what Eddie has been trying to achieve, to make them be able to switch from a 4 to a 3. We've seen them doing it at times when they're chasing the game, switch to a 3 sometimes to try and shake things up a little bit. But to start a game as a 3, they did it at Chelsea. You know, that worked well for 70 minutes at Chelsea, and it worked well at Fulham. And I think we'll see a bit more of that. I think I think that will be something that Eddie will be happy to adopt a bit more now that, again, personnel-wise, maybe Jefferson Lerma's presence in front of the back 3 helps. Lots of wing-back options as well. It's not just as if you put your left back at wing-back and your right back at wing-back. There's Jordan Hyde played there in midweek. You know, we've seen Mark Pugh have a go there, obviously in the League Cup. And in that game, Charlie Daniels, Adam Smith, there's all sorts of options. The wee man, of course, as well. So many players you can play in that formation. And
we have to mention Callum Wilson as well. He's been involved in more goals in the Premier League this season than any other Englishman. That's quite something, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's 9 goal involvements, isn't it, in his last 10 games. The same amount he had, I think, in 28 games last season. So it's not. And speaking to Simon Francis after that Fulham game, he said the one thing about Callum's game is that you don't often see number 9s be able to assist as much as Callum has done this season. It's not often sometimes you see a number 10, a Joshua King type player, assist a bit more, playing balls in the channels, putting crosses in. You don't often see it from a number 9. So I've actually got the list here of the MVPs, most valuable players of the season. Hazard, Wilson, Aubameyang, Aguero, Salah, Fraser, Sterling. So that list is superstars, and for Callum Wilson to be right at the top end of that list, that tells us, I think, how well he's playing at the moment.
And of course, it's a 3rd clean sheet in the row in the Premier League. That's something that hasn't been achieved for a year.
Yeah, and they've never kept 4 in a row in the Premier League. So that is a little carrot to float in front of for this Manchester United game this weekend. Tough team to keep out to get that 4th clean sheet in a row. So if they do manage to get a shutout this weekend, then that new record will be fully deserved.
Well, the game at Craven Cottage wasn't the only win of the week, as the Cherries took on Norwich City in the Carabao Cup on Tuesday night. Let's take a look at the short highlights.
Here come Bournemouth down the left-hand side, an opportunity to put the ball in here. Couple of step overs from Stanislas. Oh, what a finish! Junior Stanislas. Goodness me, that is lethal. A step over and then smashed it into the top corner. No reply to that, exactly what the game needed. 7 minutes before half-time, Premier League Bournemouth break through against Championship Norwich. Back out to the right, this time it's Tribal who's come out to the right hand side. Tetty in a central position, 25 yards out. Lots of passing, but at the moment sideways. Now they try and play the killer ball, looking over the top for Hernandez. Steve Cook comes across, it's an equaliser for Norwich, and it has been coming, and it's Onel Hernandez. 20 minutes left here. Norwich might have felt hard done by to be behind at the break, and now they find themselves on terms at 1-1. Corner to Bournemouth, this time on the left-hand side. These are the first flag kicks that Bournemouth have won all evening, by the way. This time it will be delivered by Junior Stanislas. In it comes to the near post, it flashes across everybody. Pugh got a chance to shoot. Steve Cook deflects it in! Steve Cook takes the credit. And Bournemouth were pegged back for nearly 2.5 minutes.
Well, I think it did deflect off someone, Kris. We can't quite say. I know we're having a look at the replay here, but Cookie was there.
Just deflected off a Norwich player in the 6-yard box, I think, Willow, as the shot was driven in by Steve Cook from around the penalty spot. The Norwich player on the goal line, Pazlak, who was trying to keep it out, just couldn't get anything on it. And the Cherries centre-half has his second goal of the season. And Bournemouth back in front 2-1.
Well, goals from Junior Stanislas and Steve Cook did see the Cherries progress to the quarter-finals of the Carabao Cup. You can watch extended highlights for free on afcbTV. Kris, not quite the performance that Eddie was after, but a win's a win.
Yeah, Eddie didn't want to reflect too much on it after the game. He was quite strong, actually, post-match for him. Given that it's been a good run recently, everything's been quite positive. But he basically said that the mindset was the thing that was wrong with that. I mean, it's great to turn in a performance that the manager's not happy with and say there were lots of things wrong with, but still come out on the right side of it. The draw wasn't very helpful, obviously, Chelsea away. But just going back to Norwich, they'll feel really hard done by. They had that great chance at the end, Jordan Rhodes heading it wide, which should have taken the game to penalties. That would have been the least they deserved, I think. But the boot's been on the other foot many times when Bournemouth haven't got what they've deserved from matches. So it is the cliched swings and roundabouts. It does go for you sometimes, but I think Eddie was disappointed with the frame of mind for a lot of players. I suggested to him, were they overconfident playing against a lower league team, and that he wasn't having that. It was just more that they weren't focused for whatever reason. So they're the chances for a lot of players who can't get Premier League minutes, and they didn't take them. So that's disappointing for, Junior Stanislas scored that wonder goal, and he was, furious with his own performance after the game. So tells you what the standards are now.
And one player that Eddie did single out after the game was Mark Pugh, saying that he thought he had quite a good game. What did you make of it? Yeah,
I think Pugh is one of those, isn't he? It's such a frustrating time for him because he's outside the 18 in the Premier League. He's not getting on the bench. And I think he's, we heard Eddie speak very fondly of him after the last round of the League Cup and say, how hard he's been working. So it was deserved, I think, that he got a start, and he's a big fan's favourite here. And there was a brilliant moment, that turn in the second half, when he took about 3 Norwich players out of the game in one fell swoop, 25 yards from his own goal, 5 minutes from time or whatever it was, winning 2-1. It was if it had gone wrong, people would have been going, "Oh, Mark." But as it went well, I think most people took a lot of joy from that. But he's a great guy, great player. He's finding it hard at the moment to get in the league team, but it's great to see him have his moments in the League Cup.
And for the second time this season, Steve Cook got on the score sheet. That's a nice moment for him, isn't it? Because he's been such a key player at the back.
He has, absolutely, and he's popped up with some big goals. I think we're going to Newcastle next week, probably none bigger than that last season in the last minute. So he absolutely drilled it. He got a bit of luck because there was a lot of players between him and the goal, but he was in the right place to finish it off. We've seen Nathan Ake pop up with some goals in his time here, Steve Cook as well. It's good to have the centre-halves contributing. Not so many sort of what you say trademark centre-half goals we've seen, and it seems to always be that end of the ground as well for Steve Cook. We go back to the Liverpool 4-3 and things. He seems to have his moments there, but great to have the defenders contributing, absolutely.
And you mentioned the draw in the next round hasn't been the kindest. Chelsea away, what do you make of that?
We're all watching the draw, those of us who are watching the draw. Even when Middlesbrough at home came out and then there were 3 teams left, I thought, do you know what, I'd even probably take Middlesbrough away. I know the fans wouldn't have taken that, but in terms of the draw, such a shame really, having had Liverpool and Chelsea at the quarter-finals the last 2 times, to get another one of the big guns, particularly with the likes of Burton and that being in the draw as well, with the greatest of respect to Burton. So it's not the draw people wanted. It's I would say that game is a shot to nothing because there's no league points up for grabs in it, so they can go there and just have a crack. Obviously they've won at Chelsea before, played pretty well there earlier in the season for 75 minutes or so, and then just lost 2-0 with a couple of late goals. So it's just a shame it's a repeat of last year, really. And the London shopping traffic, I don't think will be too helpful either.
You say there it's a repeat of last year, but the performance last year at that stage of the competition was nothing to be ashamed of, was it?
No, and of course, when Dan Gosling scored the last minute equaliser, everyone was going potty, saying, "Okay, this is it, it's going to extra time." And then literally, I can't even remember how long it was, but it wasn't much more than 30 seconds later, Morata went up the other end of the pitch and sort of ended the game. So, Chelsea, goodness me, Derby gave them a few things to think about in the week in that game. So again, they'll change players around, but Chelsea's changed squad is still a lot better than lots of other people's changed squad. So it's a free game. The thing is, it does come after a very tough run in the league. It's slotted into a very busy December. So again, it will be a great chance for some of the players who haven't had a chance to play. But Bournemouth will be off the back of playing Man United, Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, throw Huddersfield in there as well, and Wolves. But there's some big games to come before that one.
Absolutely. Well, up next for the Cherries is one of those big games, and it's Manchester United here at Vitality Stadium. Let's look back at one of the best performances against United here at Vitality Stadium.
Stanislas then with the corner. It's going to be an in-swinging one, and it's gone in. And Bournemouth lead. Their fairy tale continues. The third fastest goal of the season, and it's scored by Junior Stanislas. It's now 3-3 for him. De Gea will feel he should have saved it, but it was right into the top corner. Well, it has been windy across the British Isles this weekend, but that one I think was all about the swerve and pace of Stanislas. Manchester United have enjoyed a lot of possession this season without creating all that many chances, as you hear the away fans again chant attack, 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 attack. Carrick's ball over the top, finds Depay. It's saved by Boric, but it's Fellaini on the follow-up. Still Fellaini, it's 1-1. Just as the Manchester United fans wanted. Well, Boric again made a superb save to deny Depay. But the rebound falling to Fellaini, who was persistent in the follow-up. And was able just to beat a few Bournemouth defenders to the ball. It's almost like Bambi on ice, but it worked. It's a clever one. It's towards King, who finds the back of the net. And Bournemouth lead again. Josh King with his second Premier League goal of the season, the former Manchester United trainee, scoring against his old club. And boy, didn't he take it well. A bouncing, bobbling ball from Ritchie. Clearly a move that Bournemouth have worked on in the training ground. And King with the cool finish. And Eddie Howe's men lead by 2-1.
Goals there from Junior Stanislas and Joshua King saw the Cherries run out 2-1 winners. Kris, it's going to be an interesting game tomorrow. How do you see it playing out?
Well, it's a memorable night, that win over United, with Stanislas pinging that corner in the first minute. I mean, in terms of the two sides' respective forms, you've got to say Bournemouth wouldn't look to have a better chance of beating United again. Since that win, of course, they haven't managed to beat them again in the Premier League. Had a couple of close encounters with them, and of course a draw up at Old Trafford as well. But and United have been inconsistent this season. Obviously, they worked pretty hard to beat Everton last weekend. Threw it away against Chelsea late on, turned over by Juventus at home, albeit quite a handy Juventus team. But of course, they lost at West Ham. They drew at home with Wolves. So they just haven't managed to get any consistency at all. And you know what the circus is like at those big clubs when you've things aren't going well. The pressure all of a sudden intensifies. Mourinho, he's a master at dealing with it in his own inimitable way. I know he has big respect for Eddie Howe. We've heard him say nice things about Eddie in the past, and I know that respect is mutual. Eddie's obviously turned Mourinho over in the past as well, winning at Chelsea when, again, Mourinho was going through a pretty sticky spell there. So Bournemouth have kicked Jose while he's been down in the past. There's one or two feelings that United might have just started to turn the corner, which is a bit of a shame, really, in terms of getting their momentum going before they come here. But I saw a great stat yesterday that 10 years ago this week, United were the Premier League and the Champions League champions, and Bournemouth were on minus points in League Two. So there's the gap that's closed. We've spoken about that many times. Lukaku's been a bit of a thorn in Bournemouth's side. Not obviously got dropped last week, so whether he'll play is an interesting one. I think he scored 7 goals against Bournemouth. Him and Sterling have been the two players who've enjoyed scoring against Bournemouth the most, albeit 4 of those came for Everton in that 6-3 win. But Martial has just started to get his game going a little bit. The one thing I can't wait for, we mentioned it in last week's show, is Lerma against Pogba. That's the one thing that I've been looking forward to all week, and I just hope that proves to be the sort of grandstand show that it could well be.
Absolutely, and I spoke to someone yesterday from the Manchester Evening News, and he said that next week Manchester United they've got Juventus in the Champions League, and then they've got Manchester City in the Premier League. So will they have one eye on that going into the game tomorrow?
I think it's difficult not to have an eye on those things coming up. Again, Eddie Howe was asked by me and in the press conference as well about an eye on the games coming up, and he's only looking at this weekend, which is exactly what he's got to say, but I'm sure he has got an eye on some of the games coming up as well. So yeah, for United, obviously local pride in the Manchester derby, as well as crucial Premier League points, and obviously Juventus trying to get a bit of revenge in Italy as well. So yeah, it's a big week for United, and how Jose manages that squad at the moment, I don't think he can do much more than go full throttle really, because they're going to be too far off the pace in the Premier League soon. We're only in, what are we, coming into November, but a gap is hard to turn around sometimes, so they need to be throwing their full strength team in the league as well, I think. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll see most of their big guns playing here, but hopefully their eye is off the ball. Hopefully their eye is in Turin or in Manchester for next week, rather than here on the south coast.
And they've got a team, of course, of world-class players. Martial and Lukaku, you both mentioned. Are they the ones to look out for? Yeah,
I mean, they're the ones. Lukaku, for his history against Bournemouth, he's been a hard player to get hold of. He's not been firing this season, and he may not start. Probably won't start, to be honest. I mean, we've got to mention Marcus Rashford, who is such a bright prospect for England. Hasn't probably been quite as effective for United as people think he should be. Again, there's another international break coming up. Maybe Callum Wilson could be playing with Marcus Rashford for England in a couple of weeks' time. Who knows? But Martial, yeah, he's been a player who's taken a long time, I think, to achieve his potential at United. But he's scored against Bournemouth in the past as well. So he's another player to look out for. But people like Fred, is getting used to the Premier League in the same way that Jefferson Lerma is as well. Lingard's come back fit as well, who's obviously had a good year or so. So at the back there, they've always been, they shake up their defence a little bit. Lindelof has suddenly seems to have found his feet. Chris Smalling is probably an injury doubt as well. And behind all that, they've got De Gea, one of the world-class goalkeepers. So wherever you look, it's going to be tough. But I would say Martial at the moment is the player that Bournemouth are going to have to lock down on the form he's shown in the last few weeks.
And in terms of our squad, Eddie House just said that Joshua King looks likely to miss the game, and Simon Francis is a doubt as well. How much of a problem is that for the Cherries?
It'd be a shame if Frano didn't make it. Eddie Howe said he was quietly confident he would make the game. Again, we never know what to judge with Eddie's team use, but I think the way Simon Francis has played in the last few weeks, that would be a bit of a blow. Adam Smith obviously was in the man in possession at the start of the season at right back. Then he played left back, so it'd be interesting to see if Simon Francis is fit, what system they go with and who plays where, because Charlie Daniels came in back last week and looked like he hadn't been away, played very well, so he's staked a big claim for the left back spot. If Simon Francis is fit, where does Adam Smith play? Because Adam Smith's been just as good as anybody else. So again, does that lean itself to going three at the back? We'll wait and see. Joshua King, yeah, it's a blow, but that is a blow, because he's been, I'd say, right up there in the last month as the most informed player, along with all the others who we talk about assists and goals. He's played as big a part as anybody else, Joshua King. So, but last week at Fulham, they proved they can manage without him. But Fulham away and Manchester United are two very different kettles of fish. So it would have been great to have King, but needs must, and they must do without him.
Well, it's certainly going to be a very interesting game here at Vitality Stadium tomorrow. That's all we've got time for today, but join us next week as we'll be looking ahead to the game at St James's Park against Newcastle. Bye for now.